back to the three stones. In this video, I'm going to be doing some really basic initial shading, and I'm pretty comfortable with and happy about the basic proportions and layout of the sizes of the stones. I have started coming in to use my kneaded eraser in more of a drawing fashion, which I think I mentioned real briefly, but I did start cleaning up and adjusting the outer shape of the stones a little bit, and I'll continue to do that as I keep refining through the shading. Everything sort of starts coming together a little bit more and more. Let's see, up here I wanted to oh, by the way, I have this one up here because I'm going to go off of the values and shading patterns of this one a little bit more, but I do like the variety of stone sizes and shapes of the original one. So I'm trying to combine and use my artistic license and creativity and ability to choose, which comes more and more with experience. At the beginning, it's sort of enough to just try to friggin' draw what is in front of you. I'm gonna adjust this top stone a little bit too. That is seeming a little bit too, I want to flatten it out so it doesn't look so much like it's going to be easily tipped over. So there's a little bit of back and forth. Like that to help refine things. I really want that kind of straight and then not curving until it gets way over there. I could probably drop this whole shape down a little bit, or maybe largen the bottom one up. There certainly is, agonizing over whether it's perfectly proportional to your reference image, what you started, or it's quite fine and good and time to move on to the next phase. Which I think I mentioned I was going to be doing. So I'll go ahead and do that. At the beginning of the shading phase, I really just sort of try to get an idea of what the value range is of what I'm planning on doing. I do confess doing a value study sketch would be a very smart thing to do. And just sort of playing around with adjusting what is dark and what is light. I'm going to just sort of go with a little bit of a combination in my brain and see what happens. We'll see how that goes. But first of all, what I'm going to do is something that may seem a little bit odd, but I am going to take a Kleenex and just kind of blend everything together a little bit. Depending on how quality the paper is, it'll put up with quite a bit of this as well as erasing back. But I don't know. This has an interesting effect of making it seem less like a drawing I've been agonizing over, and kind of an interesting piece of art that I happen to be creating. And be able to look at it a little bit with fresh eyes. So that is kind of a first initial step. I'm going to also use the graphite stick very lightly. I'm going to try, because I'm trying to just sort of cover, I'm going to cover pretty much everything with a little bit of tone. So this is my woodless graphite 8B. Covers a lot of ground pretty quickly. I have it, I'm able to use the side of the pencil, so I have it sharpened so that I can use the side. And that is just using the same sharpener we're using for the other class. But I want to start building up some tone. Tone. There's so many words that get thrown around. Tone, value, darkness. But what's interesting is this. Well, one thing that's interesting is that most papers have a little bit of most nicer drawing papers have a little bit of tooth to them, a little bit of texture, and sometimes I don't want that. But for stones, it's quite helpful. I think it's going to just help us kind of get a feel for texture in general. I'm blending with my fingers now, just kind of smoothing things out. I am gonna, at this point, I'm going to kind of imagine, still using this stick, but I'm going to start imagining what I don't want to. I'm hesitating a little bit because I don't want to lay down thick graphite with this, because I'm going to want to get some darks as I build up. But I'm just going to start imagining how the light would be falling across this shape. I am using a decent amount of my artistic license, so if this is confusing, we'll hopefully make that clear. And then down here, I want to do sort of a similar thing. I'm just kind of creating a little bit of a boundary between the top of the stone and the area where the light would stop being able to turn around the form. But once again, this is very sort of early, initial, just kind of main ideas. Starting to establish what's lighter and what's a little bit darker. Blending it all together more. And then I'm going to come back and clean up the contour, the outer shape. And this is fun because it really does sort of really start to feel like drawing back and forth with this tool, which, you know, for all intent and purposes is the color of the paper. Reductive sort of drawing is the idea behind that, and it's a fun thing once you sort of experience it. So this is just helping to kind of redefine what the heck these stone shapes are. There's a back and forth between blurring everything out and cleaning everything up in this sort of style. But hopefully one thing that this will give you a good idea for is just the degree to which you can adjust things. If you do start off with light strokes on the side of your pencil, instead of getting into really strong final sort of marks early on, I keep creating a point, some sort of a point with this kneaded eraser. Using it, it sort of bends away, but eventually, if we really want to refine things with an eraser, there's certainly ways of doing that and extra tools, as you might imagine. There's more stuff you could buy. Huh. So that is starting to feel like it's getting some tone added to the stones. Well, that's going to be fun to say. And as well as beginning to establish a little bit of variety. I'm just assuming light is coming from, well, I'm not assuming, I can tell in this image light is coming from up high, and so the higher part of each stone, the upper half, you might say, is technically going to be receiving more light. The caveat being if it's literally having a shadow cast on it, but it is kind of good to separate out these issues. And think of really sort of identifying the two main kinds of shadow shading. One being one we call form shadow, which is when light cannot go around a form. So one area of the form is in shadow, shaded darker. And the other being a cast shadow, which is when one item literally blocks out light from another item. leaves a shadow when it does that. So this part would be the cast shadow. That part would be the cast shadow. We'll have fun playing with those edges kind of, as well as that being a cast shadow. That is as well. There's some fun reflected light things going. There's several things going on here. So we'll I'm going to keep playing with that a little bit. But for now, just kind of finalizing the basics of what's going to be sort of my lighter part and darker part. I'm going to call that enough for this first one, and there'll be more soon.